Commander Vex Thorne stepped off his warship onto the human research station Curiosity's End with the kind of swagger that had made entire star systems surrender without firing a shot. 6 arms, each scarred from a different campaign, rippled with cybernetic enhancements that could punch through starship hulls. His species, the Keth'raki, hadn't lost a military engagement in 3,000 years. Today's evaluation of humanity's combat potential should take maybe 20 minutes tops. The airlock hissed open, and Vex prepared for the usual reception. Trembling diplomats, hastily assembled honor guards, maybe some groveling. Instead, he found a maintenance bot polishing the floor and soft jazz playing from hidden speakers. A sign read, "Welcome, Commander Thorne. Please follow arrows to conference room B. Find the wet floor." "This is insulting," Vex muttered, following cheerful yellow arrows past laboratories where humans in lab coats peered at incomprehensible equipment. One woman walked by carrying what appeared to be a miniature black hole in a coffee mug, humming off key. Conference room B turned out to be a cramped space with mismatched chairs and a coffee machine that sounded like it was dying. Captain Roy Harper sat at the table, a middle-aged human with the demeanor of someone perpetually dealing with paperwork headaches. Beside him sat Dr. Luna Reeves, scribbling frantically on a tablet and muttering about temporal displacement coefficients. "Commander Thorne," Harper said, standing with the enthusiasm of a man greeting his accountant. "Welcome to our little corner of nowhere. Coffee?" "Luna made it, so it's either fantastic or toxic. 50-50 odds." Luna glanced up briefly, her hair escaping from what had once been a ponytail. "Oh, hi, you're the intimidation guy, right? Could you maybe intimidate quietly? I'm trying to figure out why these quantum fluctuations are dancing the cha-cha instead of waltzing like they're supposed to." Vex's primary combat jaw dropped. In his 700 years of military service, no one had ever called him the intimidation guy or asked him to be quiet about it. Species across the galaxy whispered his name in the same breath as natural disasters and incurable plagues. "I am Commander Vex Thorne," he said, straightening to his full imposing height. "I have come to evaluate your species' military capabilities." "Great," Luna said, not looking up. "Roy can handle that. I need to recalibrate these sensors before the gravitational wave peaks at 1400 hours. And if I miss the window, I'll have to wait another 6 months for the next cosmic string to wobble by." Harper poured coffee into a mug that read "World's Okayest Captain." "She's been like this for 3 weeks straight. Take breakthrough in quantum consciousness theory or something. You could probably fire a cannon in here and she wouldn't notice." Now that sounded like a challenge. Vex had built his reputation on reading species psychology, and humans were clearly in desperate need of a reality adjustment. Time for some shock therapy. "Perhaps," Vex said, his voice dropping to the register that had made warlords wet themselves, "we should begin with a practical demonstration." His upper right arm smoothly drew his sidearm, a weapon that could vaporize a battle tank. "Your species seems dangerously casual about threats." Luna continued scribbling. Harper sipped his coffee and checked his watch. "I was thinking more along the lines of a presentation," Harper said mildly. "Maybe some charts." Luna loves charts. Gets her all excited. Vex felt his intimidation rating dropping by the second. These humans were either too stupid to recognize danger or too arrogant to care. Either way, they needed education. He activated his weapon's charging system, filling the room with an ominous whine that had preceded the destruction of rebel strongholds across 17 systems. "Charts later," Vex announced. "Fear first." The energy weapon in Vex's grip hummed with enough power to punch through the station's hull. This was his signature move, the warning shot that passed close enough to singe eyebrows and demonstrate the paper-thin margin between cooperation and cremation. He'd used it on kings, presidents, and hive queens. It never failed to produce the desired result: immediate, groveling respect. He aimed carefully, targeting a spot precisely 6 inches from Dr. Luna Reeves' head. The shot would pass through her peripheral vision like a crimson comet, close enough to feel the heat, impossible to ignore. Then would come the stammering apologies, the desperate negotiations, the delicious moment when another species realized exactly how outmatched they were. Vex squeezed the trigger. The bolt of superheated plasma streaked toward Luna at roughly 10% of light speed, trailing ionized particles and the smell of ozone. It was a beautiful shot, perfectly calculated to inspire maximum terror with minimum property damage. Luna's left hand snapped up without her even glancing away from her tablet. She plucked the energy bolt out of the air like catching a lazy baseball, the plasma condensing into a glowing orb. In her palm. Interesting photon density, she murmured, squinting at the crackling energy. Higher coherence than I expected. What's the yield on this thing? Vex stared. His weapon, still smoking from discharge, suddenly felt like a child's toy. Luna held enough energy to level a city block like she was examining a peculiar butterfly. That's impossible, Vex said, his voice cracking slightly. Oh, lots of things are impossible until they're not, Luna replied cheerfully, still not making eye contact. Roy, could you ask him to fire another one? I want to compare the quantum signatures. Harper looked up from his coffee. Luna, don't encourage him. We just got the scorch marks cleaned up from your last experiment. But this is data. Luna protested. Good data. Roy, tell him to shoot again. Please? Vex's tactical computer was throwing error messages. According to his sensors, Luna had just absorbed enough energy to power a small moon. His weapons targeting system insisted the human female was now registering as a Class VI threat, the same category reserved for neutron stars and weaponized black holes. You want me to fire again? Vex asked weakly. Pretty please? Luna finally looked at him directly, and Vex nearly jumped out of his exoskeleton. Her eyes were glowing with barely contained energy, like looking into the heart of a star. I promise I'll pay attention this time. Against every survival instinct he'd developed over 7 centuries, Vex fired again. This shot was faster, more powerful, designed to penetrate heavy battle armor. Luna caught it with her right hand, now holding 2 miniature suns like stress balls. Fascinating. The second shot has 17% higher coherence, but lower thermal distribution. Are you modulating the plasma matrix manually, or is this an automatic variance to prevent targeting prediction? Vex holstered his weapon with shaking hands. How are you doing that? Doing what? Luna asked, absently juggling the energy bolts. Oh, this? It's just basic electromagnetic field manipulation. Really simple stuff. Like this. She tossed both bolts into the air and began juggling them in a perfect circle, the deadly plasma orbs leaving trails of light like deadly fireflies. Luna, Harper said patiently, you're terrifying our guest. I'm terrifying him? He's the one shooting at people. I'm just trying to work. She caught both energy bolts and looked at Vex with genuine curiosity. Why are you shooting at me anyway? Are you testing my reflexes? Because I should mention I've been working in the temporal distortion lab, so my reaction time is probably a bit off normal human baseline. Off baseline how? Vex managed. Oh, you know, faster. The time dilation effects are cumulative. Luna shrugged and casually absorbed both energy bolts into her skin like they were hand lotion. Actually, now that I think about it, you might want to recalibrate your weapons. Those shots were moving like they were stuck in molasses. Vex's tactical computer started displaying recommendations for immediate retreat. His species' most advanced weapon had just been critiqued for insufficient speed by a creature juggling the shots like party tricks. This changes nothing, Vex declared, though his voice lacked its earlier conviction. I have backup protocols. That's nice, Luna said, returning to her tablet. Could you implement them quietly? I'm at a really tricky part. Captain Harper recognized the look on Commander Thorne's face. It was the same expression every visitor got when they first encountered post-experiment humans, part terror, part confusion, and part religious crisis. Time for the standard briefing. Okay, Vex, can I call you Vex? Good. You look like you need an explanation. Harper gestured toward Luna, who had somehow started levitating 3 inches above her chair while working. See, Luna here isn't your average human anymore. None of us are, really. What do you mean? Vex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Well, remember how your intelligence briefings mentioned this was a research station? We've been running experiments with exotic matter, temporal mechanics, and gravitational manipulation for about 5 years now. Turns out, constant exposure to things that shouldn't exist has some side effects. Luna nodded enthusiastically, still floating. The human nervous system is incredibly adaptable, much more than anyone expected. We've developed enhanced reflexes, improved pattern recognition, and some fascinating electromagnetic sensitivity. Roy, show him the thing with the coffee mug. Harper sighed and picked up his mug. With a slight gesture, the coffee inside began swirling in. Impossible spirals, defying gravity entirely. Low-level matter manipulation. Developed it after working near the quantum foam generators for 6 months. Useful for stirring sugar. The engineers have it even better, Luna added. Marcus can phase through solid matter now. Says it's great for fixing internal components without disassembly. And Jenny in the kitchen has figured out localized gravity control. Her souffles never fall. Vex's worldview was restructuring itself in real time. You're saying your entire crew has developed superhuman abilities? Superhuman? Harper laughed. Nah, just adapted human. We didn't try for this stuff, it just happened. Occupational hazard of poking the universe with increasingly larger sticks. But the danger Vex started. Oh, it's incredibly dangerous, Luna said brightly. We've had 17 containment breaches this month alone. Last Tuesday, I accidentally created a micro-wormhole in the bathroom. Jenny's still annoyed about the plumbing. You're insane, Vex breathed. Thank you. Luna beamed. Sanity is highly overrated for scientific progress. You should see what we're planning next week. I want to test whether consciousness can exist in 11 dimensions simultaneously. That's impossible. People keep saying that. Then we do it anyway, and suddenly it's possible. Funny how that works. Luna made a note on her tablet. Want to volunteer as a test subject? I promise it'll either be fascinating or fatal. Possibly both. Vex looked around the conference room with new eyes. These weren't primitive warriors. They weren't even soldiers. They were something far more dangerous, scientists with absolutely no sense of self-preservation, backed by technology that had accidentally turned them into cosmic anomalies. How many of your species are like this? He asked. Harper shrugged. Most research stations have some side effects. The deep space explorers are probably worse. They've been experimenting with things we haven't even discovered yet. Last I heard, the crew on Darwin's Gamble figured out how to fold space with their minds. They use it for faster commutes between departments. This changes everything, Vex said. Does it? Luna asked, genuinely curious. Because I really need to get back to work. Please. Quantum calculations won't solve themselves, and I'm pretty sure I'm on the verge of proving that mathematics is just physics wearing a fake mustache. Vex realized he wasn't conducting an evaluation anymore. He was documenting the emergence of a new type of cosmic entity, being so relentlessly curious that they'd accidentally evolved beyond normal physical limitations. And they had no idea how terrifying they'd become. Vex activated his emergency beacon with one of his secondary arms while keeping his primary weapons trained on Luna, who had begun using her floating position to reach equations on a whiteboard mounted near the ceiling. Command, this is Evaluation Unit 1, requesting immediate tactical support. The humans are, he paused, watching Luna casually write upside-down mathematical formulas while rotating slowly in midair. Send everything. Within minutes, 6 of the Council's most advanced combat drones materialized in the station's main corridor, their sensors painting targeting solutions on every human present. These weren't warning shots or intimidation tactics, these were killing machines designed to neutralize threats to galactic security. The drones opened fire immediately. Luna sighed heavily as crimson death beams lanced through the air around her. Really? Right now? I'm in the middle of a breakthrough. She began snatching energy bolts out of the air with both hands, collecting them like fireflies. Roy, your timing is terrible. My timing? Harper protested. ducking under a shot that would have decapitated him if Jenny from the kitchen hadn't casually redirected it into the ceiling with a gesture. I didn't call for robot death squads. Engineering to bridge, came a crackling voice over the intercom. We've got uninvited guests shooting up the corridor. Should I activate defense systems? Negative, Harper replied, stepping sideways to avoid another drone. Let maintenance handle it. Standard protocol. The station's maintenance bot, a humble utility unit named Bob, trundled into the corridor and paused to assess the situation. 6 advanced military drones were systematically destroying his freshly waxed floors and blocking access to ventilation duct C7, which required daily inspection. This would not stand. Bob extended his tool appendages originally designed for light repairs and component replacement, and began methodically dismantling the combat drones. What followed would later be classified by Galactic military intelligence as the maintenance incident and studied in tactical academies as an example of what happened when unstoppable force met immovable custodial priorities. The drones, equipped with enough firepower to level a city block, found themselves being systematically taken apart by what appeared to be a garbage can with arms. Bob's simple programming interpreted their weapons as unnecessary modifications, and their armor as non-standard components requiring removal. Within 8 minutes, 6 million credit military assets had been reduced to neat piles of sorted components. Bob, excellent work, Harper called out. Make sure you recycle the good parts. Bob chirped happily and began sorting scrap metal from salvageable electronics. Luna, meanwhile, had collected 17 energy bolts and was using them to illuminate her calculations. This is actually really helpful. The photon emissions are highlighting quantum interference patterns I couldn't see before. Commander Thorne, could you ask your drones to shoot at this specific coordinate? I want to test a hypothesis about localized space-time curvature. Vex stared at the pile of scrap that had once been the Council's finest military hardware. Those drones cost more than some planets' entire defense budgets. Well, they were poorly designed, Luna said matter-of-factly. Who builds military equipment that can't handle basic maintenance protocols? That's just poor engineering. Luna finally set down her tablet and gave Commander Thorne her full attention, which somehow felt more terrifying than her casual indifference had been. When she focused those energy-bright eyes on something, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Okay, I think I've been rude, she said, floating down to chair level. You're conducting some kind of military assessment, aren't you? This isn't just random violence for fun. It was supposed to be, Vex admitted weakly. Well, that explains the shooting. Roy, why didn't you tell me this was an official thing? I would have worn my good lab coat. Luna looked genuinely apologetic. Sorry about the whole catching your death rays thing. Reflexes are a bit enhanced these days. Enhanced how? Vex managed. Oh, it's a whole thing. See, we've been studying exotic phenomena for years now: black holes, quantum foam, temporal anomalies, consciousness-reality interfaces. Standard human curiosity stuff. But it turns out that prolonged exposure to impossible physics has some interesting effects on human neurology. She gestured to Harper, who was now absent-mindedly making his coffee mug orbit his head like a tiny planet. Constant gravitational flux exposure enhanced our spatial reasoning and gave us intuitive understanding of field manipulation. The temporal distortion experiments accelerated our neural processing by several orders of magnitude. And the consciousness studies, well, those got weird. How weird? Vex asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. I can perceive mathematical concepts as physical objects now, Luna said cheerfully. Equations have texture and color. Prime numbers taste like cinnamon. It's very helpful for complex calculations, though it makes grocery shopping confusing. But the real breakthrough, Harper added, was when we realized none of this was actually dangerous. Not dangerous? Vex's voice cracked. You're juggling antimatter. That's just Tuesday, Luna shrugged. The dangerous stuff happens on Fridays. That's when we test the really experimental theories. Last Friday, I proved that parallel universes exist by temporarily becoming one. Took 3 hours to remember which dimension I started in. Vex's tactical computer had given up and was now displaying what appeared to be the machine equivalent of a nervous breakdown. "Why do you do these things?" "Because they said it was impossible," Luna replied, as if this explained everything. Humans hate being told something can't be done. It's like waving a red flag at a bull, except the bull has advanced degrees in theoretical physics and access to exotic matter. "Your species weaponizes curiosity," Vex realized. "We don't weaponize anything intentionally," Harper corrected. "We just really want to know how stuff works. The weaponization is usually an accident. Like the time Marcus tried to understand the relationship between consciousness and quantum mechanics and accidentally developed telepathic abilities," Luna added helpfully. "Or when Jenny wanted to improve her cooking and figured out molecular gastronomy so advanced she can rearrange matter at the atomic level. Her sandwich last week contained 3 new elements. Elements that shouldn't exist," Harper clarified. "They exist now," Luna said proudly. "Jenny named them Sodium B, Chlorine Plus, and Steve. Steve's her favorite because it glows purple and makes everything taste like chocolate." Vex slumped into a chair that groaned under his armored weight. "You've turned scientific. Research into an accidental arms race with reality itself." "That's beautiful," Luna said, wiping away a tear. "You should write poetry." Commander Vex Thorne sat in the ruins of his preconceptions, watching Dr. Luna Reeves explain her latest project with the enthusiasm of someone describing a new hobby. She had somehow constructed a 3-dimensional mathematical model in midair, using pure energy manipulation, creating floating equations that sparkled and chimed when they interacted. "So the consciousness exists in 11 dimensions," Luna was saying, gesturing at a complex geometric structure that hurt to look at directly. "But the really exciting part is that most beings only access 3 of them. Humans apparently use 5.5, which explains why we're so good at seeing patterns that don't technically exist yet." "And you want to access all 11? Vex asked. "God, no, that would be insane. I just want to peek into dimensions 7 through 9, and maybe poke dimension 10 with a very long stick. Dimension 11 is definitely off limits until I figure out why it keeps screaming when I get close." Vex made a note in his report: "Recommend immediate council membership for humanity. Not as conquered subjects, but as emergency consultants for problems we're too sane to solve." "Commander," Harper said, refilling his coffee mug via localized gravity manipulation, "I'm curious about something. What were you actually expecting to find here?" "Warriors," Vex admitted. "Soldiers, weapons, military installations. Evidence that humanity posed a threat to galactic security." "Well, you found evidence," Harper pointed out. "Just not the kind you were looking for." Luna nodded enthusiastically. "We're much more dangerous than warriors. Warriors can only kill you. Scientists can make you question the fundamental nature of existence while accidentally inventing new forms of matter. Much scarier." "The Council needs to know about this," Vex said, composing his report. "Not as a threat assessment, but as a resource evaluation. We have unsolvable problems." "Ooh, what kind of problems?" Luna perked up immediately. "Are they physics problems?" "I love physics problems, especially the impossible ones. The void cascade in Sector 7 has been expanding for 2 centuries. Our best minds say it's mathematically unstoppable." "Mathematically unstoppable just means no one's tried the right math yet," Luna said dismissively. "What's the quantum signature? Is there temporal distortion? Ooh, is it eating reality? I've always wanted to study something that eats reality." Vex realized that humanity's place in the galaxy wasn't as conquerors or subjects, but as the universe's emergency response team for impossible situations. They were too curious to be intimidated, too stubborn to accept limits, and too brilliant to leave the cosmos alone. "Dr. Reeves," he said formally, "would humanity be interested in a consulting contract with the Galactic Council?" "Will there be impossible problems to solve?" Luna asked. "Definitely." "Will people tell me things can't be done?" "Constantly." "Will I have access to exotic matter and dangerous experiments?" "More than you could use in a lifetime." Luna grinned. And for a moment Vex saw the expression that had probably preceded every great scientific breakthrough in human history: pure, unrestrained intellectual hunger. "When do we start?" she asked. As Vex filed his report recommending humanity for immediate council membership, he made one final note: suggest all future diplomatic contact include warning labels and emergency containment protocols. Not for our protection, for theirs. Luna was already planning her first official council experiment, proving that diplomatic immunity could be extended to parallel dimensions. She was pretty sure it was impossible, which meant she absolutely had to try.